Well, Donald Trump has turned his attention out to California. Hillary Clinton trying to sharpen her attacks up on the presumptive Republican nominee. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is hanging on, saying he's not going to drop out of this race. Our political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi, back in the studio with this morning to analyze some of the candidates and their supporters as we get closer and closer to, well, finalizing this part of the primary election. It's been a crazy season so far. Maybe I should ask you about Donald Trump. There's a lot of walking contradictions with him in this campaign. And how do you see that impacting his candidacy?
Well, I think at this point, mental stability comes into play because, some people are just very puzzled as to why he created another person, John Miller, and then another person, actually, John Barron. And then he pretended to be them and then talked about Donald Trump. So he impersonated these individuals, and now he's lying about the fact that that ever happened. So what we have here is a fabrication followed up by a lie. And I think this is really hurting him. I mean, now we're getting into the point where he's kind of out of bounds. As a psychologist, it makes me think about his stability, which is not there, apparently. And I think a lot of voters are now taking a look at him, people who might have been looking at him to actually vote for him and say, wait a minute, this is now going too far.
His supporters, though, those that are with him, seem to, if you want, bypass, not worry, brush off all these concerns about him. And in the end, it seems to always make him stronger.
Well, that's true. But they're looking for someone who's an authoritarian figure. And he meets that criteria. And he's very good at marketing himself and presenting himself and his thoughts. However, his thoughts are now questionable. I mean, it looks to me like he's saying things that are just not true. They're a fabrication. They're made up, and then he lies about it. So, I mean, this is not something that I would expect from a Rubio, from a McCain, a former nominee. I would not expect this type of behavior. And I think that's going to weigh on him, and I think he's going to have a hard time in the general election with this type of thinking.
It's very unorthodox, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's another one now coming to light. You said it has to do with the climate change.
Yeah, he says that he doesn't believe in climate change. Of course, it's a liberal hoax perpetrated somehow by the Chinese or whatever. But at this point in time, he has an application in for a golf course in another country, and he cites climate change as the reason why he's building this seawall. So which is it? I mean, does he believe in it, or is it a hoax? And, that type of thinking, I think, weighs on a lot of voters.
Let's go to Bernie Sanders, who is not giving up, on his way out to California. He can't get really the delegates he needs for the nomination, but certainly can make waves. Even says the convention's going to be messy.
Well, I kind of understand Bernie a little bit more now as we reach the final stages, because I think he wants to play it out. If you're a ball player and you want to finish the game, that's what he wants to do. And I can respect that. But I think he's got to think of unity and how he works with Hillary, because his legacy will be very, very poor if Trump wins, or if he in some way helps Trump. But his appeal, Rob, is really because he's believable. I mean, who out there in the political arena is believable? And that's a real issue. And I think he projects that. As we said before, he's authentic. I think he could have consulted with the Wink team before and called himself an independent progressive rather than a socialist. But I do think that he's making a lot of progress by being a believable candidate.
All right, real quick, less than 30 seconds. His impact on Hillary Clinton, it really hurts her, but she's ready to move on.
She's going to move on, but it hurts her right now because the polls, which I think are kind of like all over the place, don't pick up the mess that's in the Democratic Party. But once it's over, I think Hillary will project herself pretty well if Bernie's along with her.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Rossi, for coming in. Wayne News This Morning is going to be right back.